Hello and welcome to Soothing Pod Sleep Stories. My name is Anthony, and today I would like to help you relax and fall asleep, guided by my voice and the story you are about to hear. Tonight, I will tell you the exotic tale of a Japanese princess born in a bamboo forest, and her journey of returning back home. Before we begin, we'll take a moment to relax and find comfort in the space you are in. Lie flat on your bed and just take a moment to pay attention to your body. Is it trying to tell you anything? Start on the top of your head and travel down your neck. Are you holding any tension in your neck or shoulders? Now is the time to release it all. Allow your shoulders to drop away from your head to their natural position. Travel down your arms and hands. Are you clenching your fists or tensing any muscles in your arms? Let your hands loosen up, allowing them to curl into a comfortable position. Let that wave of peace travel all the way down your body until you feel like you are floating, drifting closer and closer to rest and relaxation. Now that you have taken the time to get cozy and prepare yourself to unwind, let us begin the story. Once upon a time, in a cozy village in the mountains of Japan, a man and his wife lived in peace and harmony. The man was a bamboo cutter, spending the majority of his time cutting down bamboo deep in the forest and bringing it back to the village for craftsmen to use. The man and his wife had been married for years, but were never able to have children. Every day, they put their love and energy into caring for the village instead. The woman would cook marvelous meals and bring them down to the townspeople. She would dine with the sick, the elderly, and the poor, making sure they were well fed and happy. Out in the forest, the man would collect food and give it to the animals. Birds flocked around him. Monkeys and deer scurried to greet him. But every night, the man and the woman would sit outside their home in their garden and gaze up at the starry night sky. Holding one another, they would whisper to the moon and the stars, begging the gods to allow them to have a child. They cared deeply about having a child of their own, but it seemed as though their prayers were unanswered. One day, the man journeyed out into the forest as usual. But this day felt different. the man had more energy in his step. The forest somehow seemed brighter than usual. The birds and the animals chattered loudly as they began to follow him down his normal route. The man stretched his hand and allowed it to brush against each stalk of bamboo he passed. The clink, 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 clink as he went along soothed him completely. He could almost feel the pulse of nature underneath his steps, as if he was united with the earth. The man continued along the forest, closing his eyes and taking in long, deep breaths. Today would be a day of rest, he decided. He turned off from his usual route and settled deep within the bamboo grove in a small clearing. There he would take a nap and listen to the soundtrack of the forest around him. There he would allow himself to turn off his mind and simply relax. But when the man arrived in the grove of soft grass and cool shade, there was a tall stalk of bamboo in the very center of the clearing. The man wondered for a moment if he was dreaming. He had come to this part of the forest many times before and had never encountered such a beautiful bamboo plant. As he neared the bamboo, he began to see a steady glow from within the stalk. The closer he got, the brighter the bamboo seemed to shine. He felt an energy radiating from the bamboo. For a moment, he wondered if he should cut the stalk down. Was there a forest god in the plant? After some hesitation, the man gently began to knock down the bamboo stalk. It seemed as though it was resisting, but he continued on. The wind around him began to pick up. Wildflowers were whisked up into the air and floated all around him, perfuming the air with their sweet aroma. In one final hit, the bamboo tumbled to the ground. Ethereal light poured from the broken stalk into the forest. The light was overwhelmingly beautiful, like moonlight splashing across the land. The man wiped his eyes as the light began to disappear. He glanced down into the bamboo. To his surprise, a tiny baby was curled up in the base of the stalk. She gazed up at him with beautiful amber eyes. In fact, the child was one of the most beautiful he had ever seen. Her whole being seemed to glow from within. She stretched and reached her tiny hand up at him with a smile on her sweet face. She curled her hand around the man's finger. The man felt love overwhelm him. It flooded through his system, a type of warmth, a desire to keep her safe, a paternal surge of emotion that he had never experienced before. he scooped the girl up into his arms. "Kaguya," he chimed, gazing down at his new child with awe and joy. "We shall call you Kaguya." The man hurried back home, with Kaguya cradled against his chest. All the forest animals watched him from afar in awe. There was something special about the child, and they certainly knew it. As the man scurried into his house, his wife greeted him with a wide smile. When she saw the child in his arms, she couldn't contain her shock or joy. "I found her in a stalk of bamboo," he explained. "She's our daughter now." Tears spilled from his wife's eyes. She lifted up Kaguya and placed her on her chest, overcome with joy. "Did the gods hear us?" she asked, running her fingers over her new daughter's face. "I believe they did," he replied. "That day a family was made whole." Kaguya was given a wonderful childhood. From a very young age, she would journey with her father deep into the forest. She would forage for mushrooms and plants as her father worked. The two would sing songs of the forest, laughing and dancing with one another. Kaguya spent nearly all of her days playing in the woods with her parents. She lived to be in the fresh air. She lived to splash in streams, to run in meadows, to dance through bamboo groves and cherry blossoms. Almost instantly, the man and woman knew something was different about their daughter. Her skin and eyes seemed to glow constantly, just as they had when she was a young child. She was intelligent beyond words, flying by every milestone with grace and ease. Everything she did was serene. She seemed to almost float in her movements, as if gravity couldn't quite contain her. As the years passed, the girl's love for the forest grew. However, she grew lonely. By the time she was a teenager, she desperately wanted to go into the village to meet people her age. She wanted to interact with others, to laugh and play and fall in love like she had read about in her books. For years, her parents encouraged her to stay within the woods and their home. They feared her beauty would put her in danger. But one day, Kaguya disobeyed. She walked down the winding path to the center of the village. Walking over the red bridge, she paused to look down at the koi fish in the clear water. She had only read about koi in books. Now, their movements in the water and their bright orange color captivated her. She gazed at them for a long time, her eyes welling with pure awe. People around the village began to stare. Who was this beautiful girl? Everyone began to head towards her, beckoning to her, trying to catch her attention. Kaguya grew uncomfortable, with so many eyes on her. Embarrassed and afraid, she hurried back to the safety of her home. Perhaps she thought my parents were right. Within days, word of her beauty had spread across the kingdom. Soon, Men from across the land were showing up on Kaguya's doorstep, asking for her hand in marriage. Kaguya sent the men on missions to bring her back impossible things, hoping that would make them disappear. She longed to simply return to her bamboo forest, away from the greed of men. She settled into the grove, taking deep breaths of fresh air. To her surprise, a voice piped up behind her. "I'd like to learn about you." Kaguya turned to see the Emperor Mikado standing by the edge of the grove. Sitting in the bamboo, the two talked for hours. In between the peaceful lulls in conversation, they would listen to the sounds of the bamboo around them. The wind rustling the leaves, the stalks clinking against each other, the birds flying from plant to plant. Once the sun began to set, Kaguya rose to her feet. The Emperor took her by the hand, asking her to marry him. However, Kaguya rejected his proposal, telling him she could never go to live with him in his palace. As the weeks went on, Kaguya wrote to the Emperor nearly every night. Though she couldn't agree to marry him, she felt a kinship with him. As summer washed over the land, Kaguya found herself looking at the stars with her parents. Every time she saw the moon, she became overwhelmed with emotion. Tears would spill from her eyes as her mother and father held her, asking her what was wrong. But Kaguya couldn't put her feelings into words. She felt lost, like there was something inside her she was unaware of. One night, she finally realized the truth, staring at the glow of the moon, basking in its life. She remembered that the moon was her homeland. There had been trouble on the moon, and her parents had sent her down here to Earth, where she would be safe. Staring up at that glowing moon in an endless starfield, she knew the truth. She would have to go home. She settled down under the stars to write letters to her parents and the Emperor, apologizing for her return home. Later that night, the house was engulfed in a brilliant white light. Heavenly beings waited at the door for Kaguya. "I have to go home, where I'm needed," Kaguya told her parents, holding them closely. She placed the letters in her father's hands, hands that she had held 1,000,000 times, hands that had rescued her from the forest, hands that were now wiping her tears. Kaguya stepped outside with the heavenly beings, giving her earthly parents a sad smile. The soft, otherworldly light followed Kaguya as she floated higher and higher into the starry sky. Her parents watched with tears in their eyes, waving goodbye until they could no longer see her. When the Emperor learned of her fate, he ordered his guards to burn the grass on the highest mountaintop, hoping the farewell message would reach his beloved. As he read her letter, he couldn't help but feel as though Kaguya was right beside him. He practically heard her laugh. He could almost see her brilliant smile, wiping a tear from his eye he gazed up at the bright moon overhead. He imagined Kaguya smiling down at him. As a shooting star zipped across the expansive black sky, he felt a warmth in his heart. Across Japan, in the tiny village, Kaguya's earthly parents stared up at the same sky. Holding each other, the two looked up at the night sky to make a wish, begging the gods for one thing only. Please, gods, make sure our daughter is happy and free. Make sure she is still dancing in the forests and playing in the streams. As the shooting star spiraled through the sky, fizzing out just over the highest mountain, they felt content and grateful. They had loved, and they have loved deeply. I hope you enjoyed the story of the bamboo cutter, and it has helped you drift closer to a night of relaxing sleep. Please join me again tomorrow night for another sleep story. Until then, sweet dreams. I'll be with you again next time, here on Soothing Pod.